truly an important day, a process that was months in the making, and these Americans now home.
Yeah, I was gripped to those scenes, as I'm sure many people were yesterday, of watching them being reunited with their families. As a mother of a 30-year-old young man, I couldn't help but feel for Evan Gershkovich's mother. As she was being lifted off the ground on the tarmac, that was an extraordinary moment. It was a very, very good day for those families. It was also, John, a very good day for international alliances and a reminder of why America needs allies and friends around the world and why it's worth investing diplomacy and time and hard work in cultivating those alliances, because you never know when you're going to need them. So, 3 wrongly imprisoned Americans released by Russia in a multinational prisoner swap deal arrived late last night in emotional reunions with family members at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, they were on hand as Paul Whelan stepped onto U.S. soil for the first time in years. He'd been imprisoned in Russia since 2018 on spying charges and is now a free man. Next off the plane was Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, taken into Russian custody in March of 2023. He spent over a year in prison before being sentenced to an additional 16 years by a Russian court. He and his family, and yes, his mum, were reunited last night. And finally, journalist Alsu Komasheva embraced her family. An editor for Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, she was arrested in October and accused by Russia of being a foreign agent. Last night, she saw her husband and her daughters for the first time in months. Green card holder Vladimir Kara-Murza, a Russian national and dissident activist, is in poor health. He was met by his family in Germany, where he will receive medical treatment. After greeting the released Americans last night alongside their families, President Biden and Vice President Harris spoke about the significance of the moment.
What's your message to the American people?
There's nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. Nothing. Remember who the hell we are. We're the United States of America. The United States of America. We put back together relationships with countries that we haven't had before. We rebuilt NATO. We rebuilt the circumstances allowing this to happen. That's why it happened.
This is an extraordinary day, and I'm very thankful for our president and what he has done over his entire career, but in particular as it relates to these families and these individuals, what he has been able to do to bring the allies together on many issues, but in particular this one. This is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy.
And prior to meeting with the released Americans last night at Joint Base Andrews, President Biden spoke alongside their family members at the White House. The president discussed the importance of diplomacy and of working with allies.
This deal would not have been made possible without our allies. Germany, Poland, Slovenia, Norway, and Turkey, they all stepped up, and they stood with us. They stood with us. And they made bold and brave decisions. Released prisoners being held in their countries who are justifiably being held, and provided logistical support to get the Americans home. So for anyone who questions whether allies matter, they do. They matter. And today is a powerful example of why it's vital to have friends in this world. Friends you can trust, work with, and depend upon, especially on matters of great consequence and sensitivity like this. Our alliances make our people safer. And we began to see that again today. Let me say this. It says a lot about the United States that we work relentlessly to free Americans who are unjustly held around the world. It also says a lot about us that this deal includes the release of Russian political prisoners. They stood up for democracy and human rights. Their own leaders threw them in prison. The United States helped secure their release as well. That's who we are in the United States. We stand for freedom, for liberty, for justice, not only for our own people, but for others as well. And that's why all Americans can take pride in what we've achieved today.
I was truly struck by 2 things while doing the reporting on all this yesterday. First, the president talks about the importance of alliances, and indeed, many of our fellow nations stepped up, and how Chancellor Scholz of Germany said he told the president, he gave his personal assurance, for this, I will do it, to sign off on the release of a Russian hitman that Putin wanted back that was key to this exchange. And also how the president, in the final weeks, has closed this deal as his own presidential campaign was faltering. that, in fact, just an hour before he announced he would not seek re-election while he was recovering in his Delaware beach house, saddled with COVID, that's when he called the Prime Minister of Slovenia to say, look, let's get your part of this piece of this puzzle done so we can move forward. The president still keeping his promises to these American families, American hostages, even as was putting the end to his own political future. Let's now bring in Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist and associate editor of The Washington Post, Eugene Robinson, managing editor at The Bulwark, Sam Stein, president emeritus of the Council on Foreign Relations, Richard Haass, editor at The Insider, Michael Weiss, and former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, retired four-star Navy Admiral James Stavridis. He is chief international analyst for NBC News. And Admiral, we will start with you on what you saw yesterday, the importance of alliances, and what was a historic day, the biggest prisoner swap since the Cold War.
Quite remarkable across the board. And of course, I've been in and out of Andrews Air Force Base so many times. I can't think of a better day on the tarmac at Andrews Air Force Base, which has seen more than its share of dignified transfers and the new arrival of various heads of state. Really a marvelous moment to see this, and you're showing some spectacular photos right now. Point two that struck me, you know, we always think of NATO correctly as a war-fighting alliance. We go to war. We're in Afghanistan, the Balkans, Syria, Iraq, counter-piracy. We fight alongside each other. Here's an example of an alliance practicing diplomacy together and doing it both at scale across all of these nations that pulled together, but also doing it retail, making sure we bring out these Americans. And I love the point the president made that these are also Russian dissidents who are being taken out. That's standing up. That's walking the walk for America. And third and finally, you know, you kind of ask the question, why now? Why did this all come together? There's never a specific answer to that. I think that Putin probably heard the election coming. I think, secondly, there's a sense of all of us coming together in the West at the moment because of Ukraine. And then thirdly, there's kind of, in any negotiation, there's a critical mass moment when the deal makers sit around the table and close the switch. And Jonathan, you're right to highlight Joe Biden and his personal ability to do that. I saw it on full display when I was Supreme Allied Commander and he'd come as the vice president. We really saw a master diplomat at work here. A very good day for America.
So, Richard, watching the footage last night of these reunions at Joint Base Andrews, which is where Air Force One is, it's hard not to be emotional, particularly the hug between Evan and his mother who had worked so tirelessly to keep his story front and center, to help advocate for his release. Give us your thoughts as to this moment, what it means.
To me, an interesting moment was Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, getting very emotional talking about it. You know, when you're in the foreign policy business, Jonathan, so much of what you do has a degree of abstraction. You're talking about deterrence. You're talking about national interest. For the people involved in this, the president, the vice president, National Security Advisor, Secretary of State, you know, this was real. This had a kind of detail about it. This wasn't an abstraction. Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, would carry in his pocket a card, an index card with the list of the names of Americans. So I think for a lot of them, this was different. This was different. This was not balance of power. This was people, and this was something they felt a real personal commitment to get done. The other side of the personal thing, you know, we've talked about that the relationships really matter. The idea that the Chancellor of Germany didn't want to do this, did not want to release a Russian hitman, which was the reason Putin seems to want the deal. But he did it because of the larger relationship. That's what alliances are meant to be. Alliances are not transactional relationships. Alliances are relationships where you think big, you think long-term, and even if you sometimes disagree on the immediate, you say to yourself, I'm going to put that a little bit on the side because I have such a larger stake in this relationship. I'm willing to play the long game. And it's interesting because we don't always, let's put it bluntly, we don't always see it. So I thought this was interesting in the context of a lot of Middle East news, where the United States is very frustrated with the relationship with its with its ally Israel. So I thought this was it. But again, this to me was an interesting moment where, one last point very quickly, Jonathan. This thing had been cooking for a long time. Sometimes in diplomacy, you make something more possible by adding to it. We always think of kind of reducing it, 1 for 1, 2 for 2. But no, dozens of people, half dozens of countries. It's an old ploy in diplomacy is when you can't get somewhere, sometimes you add to the mix rather than subtract from it. And that gives everybody a stake in it. And that clearly happened here.
There had been some momentum for a deal earlier this year that would have also involved Alexei Navalny, the Russian dissident. But after he died, that was seen as a setback. But the sides were able to keep going. Richard, you just mentioned the emotional moment with Jake Sullivan. Let's watch that here.
From the president on down, we've stayed in regular and routine touch with them. I spent a lot of time with the families of Evan and Paul and Alsu. And most of the time, as you can imagine, those are tough conversations. But not today. Today, excuse me. Today was a very good day.
So, Gene Robinson, we're seeing Jake Sullivan, our national security advisor, while briefing the press yesterday. That was after the exchange had happened. It was in Turkey. It was a third-party country. And then from Turkey, the Americans flew back here to the States. Certainly, we've been saying to start the show, a real triumph of diplomacy yesterday.
Absolutely. It was, I want to go back just something that Richard Haass said. Sometimes you have a problem that you're having trouble solving, and sometimes the way to solve it is to make it bigger. And they did this, and I believe the Russians released something like 16 people all told. The Allies released 8. It was an enormously complicated deal. Just the pure joy that we saw last night when those families were reunited is something that, I will never forget. And I just think that you could just see how the principals who were involved in this, Sullivan, the president, the vice president, the secretary of state, how personally invested they were in bringing these Americans home, and then I will just say a word about journalism and about the fact that Evan Gershkovich and Alsu and really Kara Mirza, the Russian dissident who were involved, they were all journalists, and what they were doing was writing and speaking truth, and that's not a crime, and that can't be a crime, and I'm so happy that they're home.
Sam, I know you interviewed on Way Too Early a report from the Wall Street Journal, and it's worth everybody reading that TikTok in the Wall Street Journal. It's incredibly detailed. It reads like a kind of combination of a spy novel and a masterclass in diplomacy. And his mother's commitment and the role that she played, I think, was not something we had all appreciated.